yeah, everything's on fire, right? So some people have a misunderstanding or have a hard time understanding how someone would do that. Not
Comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's what it is. So it doesn't mean that to be scary, but just do it because you know that after that you're going to be stronger.
I don't think there's a way you can eliminate fear. I think the answer is do it scared. When you have a business, it never stops. Like whether or not you're working, it's still in your head and it's taking all the space in your head.
Okay, today we have an invitee. We are interviewing Amélie Morency, she's a fractional CEO working for different types of businesses, and she wants to help. So I'm going to start by my co-host first, Mo. How do you feel today with your typical message?
It's a beautiful day to be alive. What an amazing day. A lot of energy, a lot of good vibes. And we're so happy to have our guest today. And it's going to be an amazing conversation. Steve, I'll let you start perhaps with a quick introduction. And then we can go with some amazing questions.
That's right. So I know, Amélie, instead of trying to speak for you, talk about you, I think the best way is where do you come from? What are you doing today? What's your mission? And I would say vision as well for the future. And that's going to be very helpful for us. And we are eager to hear you about yourself.
That's a lot of questions to start. Like, what are you doing? Where are you going? What's your vision?
Exactly. So from the history to today and what's your future? So what's your short history? I don't know where you want to go and not the things that you don't want to talk about. No worries.
I don't think there's anything I wouldn't want to talk about anyway. I'm doing fractional work right now. I work as a fractional CEO. I think a really easy way to explain what I do is that I'm a second brain for a lot of entrepreneurs. I often come in a situation where there's people running a business who kind of need help but don't really know where to start. Typically, there's like dynamics where you might have a lot of employees, but no one who can kind of understand the reality of what it is to run a business. I make that kind of comparative a lot where there's nothing wrong with people who have a job, but when you have a job and you kind of tune it off and you're like, it's 5 p.m., I'm going home. And I know this because I've done it. And there's kind of this nice thing to it where you kind of, when you have a business, it never stops. Like whether or not you're working, it's still in your head and it's taking all the space in your head. And, you have people depending on you, like their livelihoods depend on your ability to keep paying them.
Yeah.
And that's like another level of stress and just kind of pressure that you might have a hard time kind of understanding unless you've done it. So that's kind of usually what my value is, we could talk about all the specifics of like, CRM implementation and processes and whatever things that I do, but realistically, I'm a therapist. Like a lot of the time, and it's a thing.
I like that.
People have said to me a lot. I've never kind of sold myself as my therapist value. But a lot of people are telling me that it feels like, I'm a bouncing board. I'm a person who can kind of help you figure out what the next right step would be for your business.
It's interesting because you said about therapists. We were talking in a different episode about I'm doing fractional CIO, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And I tend to be hands-on, so I'm working with middle managers, but I'm also going as low as possible, and low not being pejorative, but at the people doing the real work. And I'm learning a lot from there. And I've worked with people crying about the changes. And I said, I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to say, hey, it's coming. We'll help you. We'll be with you. We'll create a knowledge base, training. You'll have resources, blah, blah, blah. So no, I totally get it. And your topic as well about entrepreneurship in general, without repeating what you said, for me, at the beginning, a long, long time ago, I was feeling like, and I was also dealing a lot in the US, not over here. So all my friends and my surrounding people were not entrepreneurs, and I was feeling like an extraterrestrial overall. That's the word I used at that time. So, but in your fractional COO role, in terms of the markets, the ecosystem. So what do you see the most right now? What and how the people are reaching out to you? Why they're reaching out to you, and what do you see coming at you, and what's their main struggle?
So there's a couple things. I mean, I think getting to the point where you realize you need help is like often like it's a point where I mean I think it requires a lot of humility to reach out to someone and be like, I need help.
Yeah,
And the profile that we associate to entrepreneurs, and it's not like a, I think it's a majority. I don't think it's everyone, but there's kind of this drive and this kind of desire to do things that you need to have, slash ego component to it as well. So kind of taking a step back from knowing that you're doing or trusting that you're doing the right thing, even if you don't know, and realizing that you don't know everything and you want to be helped is a first huge step. I'm at a point now where I think, if I tell you I'm a fractional CFO, most people understand what that means, right? Because everybody understands a CFO, and fractional is like you just don't have enough work for someone to do it full time. And I think there's this association of CEO being the head of everything, running the ship, slash, yeah, everything's on fire, right? So some people have a misunderstanding or have a hard time understanding how someone would do that not full time. And I've been really, really present. I mean, I guess on LinkedIn in the last couple of years, I've been posting consistently, but I think I did also I put a lot of work into trying to communicate what I do really clearly and kind of show the transformation. And it's hard in a sense because what I do varies a lot depending on what business and what entrepreneurs I'm working with. Because everybody has some strengths and some weaknesses. So if I'm talking to a founder who is more of like a technical person who is in a CEO seat by default because there's no one else, they might have a different skill set than someone who's a creative or someone who's a business person, right? So I bring different things to the table depending on who I work with. So it's not like I come in, I do X, Y, Z, and then I leave and things are in that shape. It's never that black and white. I typically work on some roles or projects that are kind of ongoing where it's like, I'm going to work on these three priorities, kind of push these things forward. But there is, in the last 3 years, I've been doing this full time for almost 2.5 years now, three. There is no contract that I've ever worked on that we said this is the scope of work and the scope of work was respected. And
Wow,
like it
wow.
always kind of explodes into a bunch of different things.
yeah.
Sometimes it's tiny things. Sometimes it's like you told me the problem was A, but the problem is something completely different.
A
And I
customer is
only,
not always right.
well, I think it's because when you have it here, your face is in it, and you can't take a step back and look at everything. Like I had a client and I think it was interesting because they brought me on saying we have a problem with our the tool we use to do the quotes for a project, right? We are selling some projects with the assumption we're going to make 40% margins on them, and somehow we lose money. And they didn't know why that was happening. So I kind of started looking into it, and it was like this massive Excel spreadsheet. Just to give you an idea of how big the file was, I couldn't put it into Google Drive.
Wow,
I had to open it locally on my computer.
wow.
That's how
Wow.
massive the Excel sheet was. So there's like tabs and tabs and tabs of data and a bunch of formulas that are running over like multiple tabs, and you click on the thing and it's supposed to make a bunch of calculations by itself. But all of the assumptions that it was running on were wrong. So we didn't know what was broken in the file. So the question, like the mission for me was to kind of redo that in a simpler format. So I started interviewing the employees, trying to understand their processes and be like, okay, what do we need the Excel sheet to do to realize that the different people were doing sales were selling completely different things. So they couldn't agree on what they were
Wow.
selling. So we basically took a step back and be like, okay, we need to agree on these are the business rules. And once we agree company-wide, these are the business rules, then we'll think about maybe making an Excel spreadsheet, right? But we can't do an Excel spreadsheet if you guys can't agree on what you're selling.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of, the root of the problem was completely different than the actual problem that was told.
Wow, that's
so.
I was about to say great story, but it is a great story, but it is a sad story at the same time.
Wow, sad one. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that's just like I think it's a story I like to tell because that's a specific example of something that is usually at scale much bigger problems in some other companies. Like I'm often brought on because it's like there's a feeling of X. Like I feel overwhelmed. I don't have time. I don't know where I'm putting my time. I have these goals. I don't know if I'm doing the things that are supposed to be aligned with making this goal work. Or, my employees are saying that this. And then it's like, okay, let me come in and kind of assess everything and look at everything.
Lots of control, lots of visibility on certain things, and you want to have fresh eyes and fresh brains.
Yeah, I mean, it's also often like there's also a timing component to it because it's either, we need to get profitable in the next 6 months. We are downsizing. We are aggressively scaling because there's an opportunity. There's often some kind of component of we're X, we want to be Z or something, so it kind of is linked to those things. It's rare that I'm just like, everything's going well. We want to keep going well. But, like if it's great, you usually don't need me. So it's like, it depends. But there's always a component of optimizing and seeing we're doing some things good. Can we do them better? Can we be more efficient? Can we spend less time doing this, or can we automate some of it as well? So I dabble in like a lot of different things, but everything is kind of, want to say, at the intersection of like sales, finance, and kind of operations to some extent. Like I wouldn't take a project that's like entirely sales because there's always, can you sell, but can you deliver after? And then we sold a bunch, we can't deliver, or
But it's getting close to. I mean, COO, CIO is something relatively new, but at the same time, we need to understand the operations to optimize it, and you are also optimizing it. So there is obviously a quick egg. It's not like a black and white. Obviously, it's very close to that. So, Mo, any challenging questions for Amélie?
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to start by saying thank you so much for the time. We appreciate you, and our audience will learn so much from your input. I'm more interested into the mindset part of it. I mean, what is the mindset that you noticed that a lot of entrepreneurs all perhaps think about? So what is something that keeps them going? Because you said you work as a psychologist as well. You're the motivator. You're always making sure that everybody is motivated to go to the next level in a small business or a startup. So what is something that you would think is a driving factor of many businesses where a person can leave the safety of their job and just go and start a new idea?
Well, I think there's a couple of different things in what you said. I think therapists and psychologists are not exactly the same thing. I wouldn't have the pretension to say that I'm a psychologist. And I think what I mean is often I'm going to be the kind of blow up valve where I've been in conversation with like CEOs who are crying. And sometimes it's not the CEOs, it's the staff who's like in this situation and they don't know how to cope, and they're like, no one ever listens to me, but you do. So it depends on the needs. It's not something that I'm going to voluntarily say, hey, let's do a therapy session, right? It's often like we have a meeting and then I realize there's another problem and I poke. I think one of the great things about working with someone who's kind of outside is that I kind of come in a position of, I'm here to help. I'm boots on the ground. I'm going to put my arm in the cogs with you and we're going to figure it out together. I'm not like a consultant in the traditional sense of I'm going to come in and tell you, this is how you fix your thing. Here is a 48-page document that's going to explain how to do it. Bye, have a great day, right? People call me because they need help, so I'm the help. And so the therapy thing,
helping entrepreneurs.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
that's kind of it. But the idea for me was really just, this is something I have a lot of fun doing. Like that's something that's like stimulating intellectually. Like there's challenges to what I'm doing. I'm learning a lot because like I work with a bunch of different companies in a bunch of different industries, right? So I never thought in 1,000 years I would work with companies in the fashion industry because I do not particularly care about fashion. I go out of my way to buy things that don't have logos or brands on them. But from an operational point of view, fashion is incredibly complex and therefore really fun for me.
And fast.
Um,
It's very fast.
I mean, it depends. Yeah, it's so the client I work with, they design and manufacture everything. And so there's like import export. There is a component of incredibly tricky cash flow because they manufacture 6 months before they sell and then they get paid 90 days
Wow.
later.
Wow.
And so like the peaks of like the
Like
cash
what?
flow, it's like 1 month you're up 80 grand and the month after you're like down 40 and it's just like all over the place, right? Um, Setting up processes across the company. They're selling online, they're selling wholesale, there's like B2B, B2C, there's different layers of everything. So from a complexity point of view, it's not like a mess, but there's a lot of opportunities for things to explode, right? And so I'm learning a ton. I've never really done export and import export, but I've wanted to for a number of years. And now I'm like figuring out, like I had a shipment that was stuck last week and I spent like 3 weeks getting it unstuck. It was a nightmare. Um, but I'm figuring out these things and it's kind of cool because I wanted to do it and now I did, you know? But it's not like from the traditional sense of things. If I had my business, I wouldn't get to do a variety of things like this, you know, because um I mean, it's still my business. My practice is my business, but in the sense of, you know, yeah.
I have a question about that
Uh-huh.
exactly this point. I'm glad because the link is like perfect. I'm thinking about it for the last 10 minutes. So I've been in building companies like service, hardware, software, product companies, manufacturing. So I went through different business models, but to realize and officially said, I am a builder. It took me
Mm-hmm.
a long time to claim
Yeah.
myself as a builder,
Yeah.
but I am a builder. Now I can say it. And eventually I started my consulting firm as you did. And I started to help others to build their organizations, their businesses. Now I'm doing both. And why I'm saying that is I went through the process, the mindset or the mind thinking about, okay, now I'm a servant. I'm serving other people to build their businesses. So the question that you already got in your mind. So how do you see that? Because you have built company or companies.
Yes.
Now you're a servant helping others and we're learning, and I'm still doing both. I still love both for whatever reasons, but I need to build. If I don't build something, I build a consulting. But when I did what I wanted to do, I needed to build something else while keeping the consulting firm. So this
Yeah.
is where I am, and no Mo is aware of all my different projects. But basically, I realized I cannot live without building something. I guess the engineering background is part of it.
Me too.
But it's more on the business side now. So
Yeah.
what about you, Amélie?
It's the same thing. So like the whole consulting thing started as an excuse, really. Because the long story short was, um, when I was pregnant, I got pregnant during the pandemic. So I was working in my full-time job and so basically I'll start. I went bankrupt in 2017, okay? And at that point, I got a job, which was my first adult job, like 9 to 5 kind of thing. It took me less than 6 months to start a side hustle on the side. I flipped books on Amazon for 3 years. Um, did a lot of money, more money than I did with my job. And I was doing it like 10 hours a week or something. It was just kind of a fun thing. I never told anybody I was doing it. I would buy used books in like thrift stores and just flip them online. And I got to a point where I started hiring people to kind of help me scale and exploring new ways of getting inventory and stuff. And then the pandemic happened. So my main source of inventory was retail stores, which all closed here.
Mhm.
So, and it was also like perfect storm because the pandemic made everything stop. And I knew that we were planning to get pregnant soon, which meant we also had to clean some room in the house. And I was kind of getting tired of having to haul around books of like boxes of books that were like 50 pounds or whatever. And it just felt like a nice closure, you know? So I kind of got rid of that business. And I had this vision um, for it wasn't like a really rigid plan, but when I was gonna be pregnant, like hypothetically, my vision was post bankruptcy that at that point I would have something, another project I had been working on that I could get into full time. That meant I wouldn't have to go back to my job. And then I got pregnant and I had nothing, entrepreneurial wise, right? So I kind of had this whole, you know, I guess crisis about my life and feeling like a failure and whatever. I wasn't even 30 yet, and I was just like, you know, I got an opportunity from a friend who during the pandemic we were playing chess online because we couldn't see each other, and we were like on Zoom, share screen, playing chess, you know. And he's like, I need someone in my business to help me. And initially, the conversation was kind of help me find someone. And the conversation really quickly got to you should become my partner.
Mm.
And this is like 3 weeks before I gave birth. Like I'm starting my mat leave. And I'm like, well, I'll have time. At worst, I'll just go back to my job in a year if it doesn't work out, right? And this was a business and like video, which is like agency and it's like a service. And it's really something completely out of left field I'd never been interested in or, you know, known about. And I was like, that sounds cool. Let's do it. So I did that. And I realized at the end of the maternity leave that I wanted to do this full time. So I kind of went back to my job part time to ease off and help them transition and everything with the plan that Christmas 2022, I was going to go full time. And in the process of doing that, I'm getting ready to quit my job. And we lost our biggest client who was on a retainer, paying my salary entirely. So then there was a conversation because I also promised my wife that I wouldn't work for free anymore because I'd done that over the years hundreds of times and never got paid because it was like, if you just do this, then you would have money to do and pay you and whatever, right? So I decided to leave the business. But I had such a good co-founder fit, like as far as, you know, what we were talking about earlier, just like feeling heard and seen and like we could agree on where we wanted to go. We just couldn't agree on how to get there. But it was a really kind of just in terms of skill sets and everything, it was really good. And I told myself, I'm going to do consulting until I find something else because
Wow.
I'd been doing consulting for years. I just never sold myself. It was just like people would reach out to me and I would take them. Um, and so that was kind of the idea when I started. It was just like until I find something else. There's something else being a business I want to get involved in. I'm just not attached to this idea that I need to have an idea that I'm going to start from scratch. Because I always consider myself as a builder too. Um, and so it kind of built onto this. And then I got involved with a bunch of business in the last 3 years. That didn't work for a variety of reasons. But that was kind of always my main goal. And now I'm realizing, now I'm in the point of like, I'm also starting to build some stuff on the side because I've identified some problems that my clients have that I can fix. So it's kind of like I'm not planning on doing one or the other. I'm just always probably going to do both. I think the amount of time I spend on one versus the other might change over the time. Like, you know, I might do more of this and then do more of that and kind of go with the flow. But yeah, building is the name of the game, I think.
Yeah. No, it's no well explained. And yes, building is in consulting. You learn a lot. You're helping people. You stay in the game. It's diversified. So I like it very much as well. So Mo, another question for Amélie?
Yeah, I might have one question that you can talk about, which is related also to mindset. So sometimes I noted that so many times some of my colleagues and friends who want to start an idea, they have a lot of fears. What about if it doesn't work? What about if it fails? What about if something is challenging? Could you please share a strategy that will eliminate these fears and just let people go for it, go with their hearts, and just follow their dreams?
I don't think there's a way you can eliminate fear. I think the answer is do it scared.
Wow. Wow.
Like, yeah, it's scary. Do it anyway. You know, like it's not that black and white because like in practice, people might be paralyzed by fear and stuff, but I think it's just like, so what if it doesn't work? Then you tried. What if it did work? Like
Mm,
I don't know. I feel like someone told me a thing years ago and it kind of I don't remember the exact, saying, but it was basically like you should always start your day by doing the scariest thing on your to-do list. Because the scariest thing, the thing you're dreading the most, is probably the one that's gonna make you move forward the most as well,
Yep,
right?
totally
Like
agree.
that phone call that's awkward, or calling that investor you don't want to call, or you know, whatever that may be for you, right? But yeah, do
No,
it
I
anyway.
think for me, it's being comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's what it is. So it doesn't
Hmm.
mean that it'll be scary, but just do it because you know that after that, you're going to be stronger. So again, the famous proverb or whatever the term is, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I mean, this is what I'm teaching my children. Just do it. Oh, I'm too shy to do it. Okay, but let's do it slowly, and you'll get used to it, and you'll be very good. So, the sooner you feel that, and you know when you're aware that that discomfort is going to drive you, is going to make more innovation, more ideas from you. That's where everything starts because that's how you're going to evolve quickly and be above the noise, be above
Yeah.
other people.
There's I don't know if you guys have seen this show. What's it called? I can't even remember the name. No, it's a really terrible story I'm going on. But there's this TV show, This Is Us. It's like a huge TV show, right? It was
Last
really
of Us, The Last of
no,
Us.
This Is Us.
Oh, This Is Us. Okay.
It's like
oh,
three siblings, like, and they're kind of just going through their lives, but it's like a bunch of flashbacks and like talking, like showing in the future. Anyway, there's one of the sibling has this thing that he does with his wife, and it's kind of like a way to deal with his anxiety. It's like, what's the worst that can happen? And then it just go really gore, like, what's the worst that can happen? Our kids die, the house burns down, everything. Um, and I thought it was kind of cool because if you literally put it out on paper, like, what is the worst that can happen? You know, and go like when I had my startup, and I think this is a good just I kind of had this mantra almost like every time I was doing something super scary, and it's like, I'm signing these huge contracts that I'm putting my I don't have any house, but I would basically co-sign like a personal loan, whatever, for the company. And it's like, well, at worst, I will go bankrupt. And that was just this thing. It was like, at worst, I will go bankrupt. At worst, I will go bankrupt. And I'm signing contracts and stuff. And I did go bankrupt, and it was really bad for a couple months, and then it got better, and now it's kind of like this thing that I get invited to go talk about on stage all the time. Like, it was bad, but a lot of good came out of it.
Yep.
I left school, like I dropped out of school to do my startup because I truly believe that that startup was going to open more doors for my career than a graduating school would.
mhm,
And
mhm.
I was right. Like, there is no world I would have gone as far if I had not done that.
Yeah, we did those failures. People, I was using, and I'm still using it. I say, oh, we have a contingency plan. So something
Yeah,
happens, I can do this, or something happens. But I have a friend which is very, very super positive, and she said, no, say this is not a contingency plan because a contingency plan is something besides something different. It is an evolution plan. So meaning you
yeah,
had to go there, and after that, you can go in a different direction. But what you lived it. So it's part of you,
mhm,
it's part of your experience. So in your
yeah.
case,
You can't
you're
unlive it.
you're generating revenues from your bankruptcy, but you're doing other stuff as well. And you've learned so many things that you can help other, and you're
Yeah, of
learning new
course.
stuff. It's kind of an evolution.